In honor of the Jewish holiday of Purim that is coming up, we are going to make some of their signature cookies called hamantashen. It comes after we create these cookies after the villain of the story, whose name is Haman. He wore a tricorn hat, and these cookies look like tricorns. So, things you are going to need for sure today: you're going to need a biscuit cutter and or a glass that's about 3 inches wide, and then just some way to kind of mix everything together. Plus 2 or 3 of your favorite fillings, because we're going to fill these cookies with a little bit of filling. So there's a nice sweet little extra in the middle. One more thing, there is not going to be a politics portion. Instead, I'm going to make my announcement because we are going to set our ovens at the same time that our dough rests. So we'll do all that and I'll guide you through it. So don't worry about it. Anyway, that being said, let's get started.
All right, guys, first thing we're going to do is we are going to take our stick of butter and we are going to start thoroughly mixing it, creaming it in fact, using your stand mixer or an electric mixer until it is thoroughly soft and coating the sides of the bowl. This is going to take a couple seconds. Once you do that, you're going to add your sugar. This is called the creaming process. So as soon as you add your cup of sugar, we are going to get this going and to make sure that the butter and the sugar are thoroughly combined. Scraping down the sides is necessary to make sure all the sugar gets combined. After that, we are going to add in our egg. You don't need to mix it first, just add it in and then combine this on medium or high until everything is thoroughly combined and homogeneous in texture. You don't want egg sticking out or looking like it's separate. After that, we're going to add our 2 tablespoons of milk. Put that in there, and again, thoroughly combine this until it's one homogeneous mixture. Only then is it safe to add the dry ingredients. So the first thing you'll do is add your baking powder. We're putting in 2 teaspoons of that, and then after that we're adding in 2 cups of flour, making sure you get all of that in. Again, scraping down the sides as necessary to make sure everything is starting to combine. We're going to do a half teaspoon of salt, and then again, just be very careful. And then once everything is about to be combined, add your glug of vanilla. You can be flexible there, but don't be flexible with the salt. Then you're going to thoroughly combine all of this until it has come together in such a way that you cannot tell the difference between the ingredients. It's going to look a little wet, and that's perfectly all right. Okay. After that, you're going to make sure that you have a piece of plastic out, and you are going to use this plastic to shape the dough into a square. So you can see I'm doing my best to form this into a square with the plastic and with my palms. Just make sure that it's thoroughly covered because you're going to set this in the fridge for a long time, at least an hour and up to 2 weeks.
Okay, so we have prepared our dough. It is resting in the refrigerator. Now, you can leave your dough from anywhere for half an hour to an hour to several hours to about 2 weeks, okay? Don't keep it in the fridge for more than 2 weeks. The dough will be too difficult to work with at that point, and it's really not supposed to last that long anyway, especially because there's eggs in there. So that being said, our dough is in the fridge. Now is the time where you're going to want to start preheating your oven. So if you are baking today, you're going to want to preheat your oven to about 375 degrees Fahrenheit and let it just sit there for a little bit. Now that you've still got to form the cookies, so if you want to wait, you can start your oven preheating when we start to form the cookies. That's fine too. It doesn't really matter too much. Either way, you just want your oven to be nice and hot. So that the cookies begin to cook pretty much immediately when you put them in the oven. Because starting from a cold oven is going to be difficult for these particular cookies and will cause them to melt out, to cook improperly and unevenly. And for these shaped cookies, it's really important that they cook evenly and they cook well. So you just want to make sure that the whole oven is hot. So even if you have it preheating for a little bit extra time, it's really that's not a bad thing. So, as I mentioned earlier, there will be no politics portion today, but I do want to make a special announcement about the channel and just talk about that for a little bit. But first, I'm going to do some cleaning up your kitchen, so set your timers and I will be right back. All right, we are back. I have done some cleaning up the kitchen, and so now it's time for the announcement. This, episode 50, will be the last episode of Let Them Eat Bread. The show's run its course. There's a lot of reasons why I will no longer be continuing to make the show. But I don't really want to get into any of those. I do first, I want to thank everyone who engaged, interacted with this channel, with the various pages on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook. Anyone who liked the content, anyone who interacted in comments. Even if you didn't like the content, honestly, just leaving a comment helps in the algorithms. So, I really appreciate everyone who has been a part of, in some way, shape, or form, this project. I especially want to thank my immediate family, my partner, and my dog, who have both been absolute champions in being quiet so that I can film at any given time on any given Friday. And I enjoyed it while it lasted, but my life is changing, and I don't really have the time and energy to do this work every week. So what I wanted to spend the rest of today's show doing, this kind of non-baking period while our dough cools, is talk to you about the lessons I learned doing the show, and the lessons that I want you to take away, you the viewer, to take away from this project as it ends. Now, first things first, right? No channels are being deleted. So all the videos that I made in the year and change that this channel has been around will still be there. The Facebook page will continue to exist, although there's going to be pretty much no interaction on there at all. The Twitch page will be up. You'll just never really see anything from it. But that being said, right? So what did I learn in this process? So the first thing I learned is that this takes a lot of work to set up. Even a 2-hour show, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. There's a lot of setup and takedown. I have to clean my kitchen every time so that I can work on the island here with you guys. Thinking about what content I want to present, thinking about how to reflect it in my particular lens, and also try and say something unique, right? Try not to just be another echo for people who are getting their news and their commentary from somewhere else, somewhere that is providing a value to them that I don't have the reach and never will, right? Have the reach of a lot of these other channels. So I wanted to say something unique, right? To make sure that my voice was useful as opposed to being just another echo. And that's really hard to do, right? I spent a lot of time trying to also figure out what format worked best for the show and doing all the editing. And it takes a lot of work for one person to do this. So everyone who does do this, all the channels that are starting up, guys, honestly, the best thing I can tell you is find a small channel that has content that you like, and just support them, subscribe to them, watch their videos, leave a like, leave a comment, because those little things really keep people going. I remember when I got my first positive comment, and it was like, wow, like, this is awesome. You really feel that you have impacted at least one person, and it's super helpful for creators to go through that process and to feel loved and validated in what you're doing, because it's a lot of work. And if you think that no one's benefiting from that work, then it doesn't have that same type of joy that it could have if it's impacting other people. The second thing I learned is that there's a lot of trust placed on these so-called authoritative sources, right? And what I learned is that we have to think about what people's incentives and disincentives are. And actually, this kind of leads me into the things that I want you guys to take away from this project, which is never just trust a source because they appear to become from an authoritative place. This is a thing that mainstream media does all the time. Oh, a general from so-and-so is going to talk about this. Well, see where that general works, right? Maybe they work for the Pentagon, in which case their opinion is probably not influenced necessarily by money, right? Because it's difficult to buy a general. But if they're working for like Boston Dynamics or Lockheed Martin, that's not going to be disclosed to you, right? So you need to actually look up that individual and then make sure that they're espousing an opinion based in fact, as opposed to an opinion based on the money that they've been paid to say what they're saying, either presently or in the past. Another thing that I think I would like you guys to take away from this is try and get news that's being confirmed in multiple sources. Now, you don't have to take every little fact may not get repeated on every network, right? And so do your due diligence to make sure that you're listening to enough varied voices in the world, that you're getting lots of information that helps you understand something really and truly, because there's everyone kind of lives in their media echo chamber bubble. And not only that, more importantly than that, we all live in the head of our own assumptions, right? We all live in the bubble of our own assumptions. And so someone who's newscasting something may assume that you know something, right? And I tried really hard on this show to make the show as accessible as possible, to try not to assume things, try not to use acronyms that I hadn't first defined. And that's really hard to do, right? Because I digest this news stuff pretty much every day. And even when I wasn't doing it for the show, I was still doing it for my own personal benefit. And it's really difficult for you to think about someone else's perspective. And so if you're listening to something and it doesn't sound right, or there's a leap of logic, don't just go with that, right? Do your homework, dig in. Especially if the story is of consequence to you, right? Now, if it's not of consequence to you and you don't really care, and you're not going to really repeat it to anyone, then, don't waste your effort, right? Like, we only have, as individuals, as workers, so much time in our lives and in our days to verify the authenticity of particular things. But especially if you think this is a story that you'll be talking about with other people, friends, family, even your own YouTube show, try really hard to dig in to the leaps of logic that are made, right? Make sure that you understand what's going on here. Think about these things from the perspective of other individuals. And so, we generally, as a society, we need more media literacy, but there are kind of easy ways to start your media literacy journey, right? One of them is just to kind of question sources, right? Like I mentioned earlier, is that general really a general from the Pentagon, or are they a general from, Boston Dynamics or Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman or whatever? Another thing is anonymous sources say. You should raise an eyebrow. Now, it's important for anonymous sources to exist, right? Because people sometimes cannot give information if they attach their name to it. Sometimes it's dangerous for them, either politically, in their career or their life. So we can't say no anonymous sources, because anonymous sourcing is very helpful. But if it's one anonymous source saying something that's not being validated by any other data or information, you should be skeptical of that, right? In addition, don't believe the hype. And what I mean by that is, like, political hit pieces will often be disguised as, proper journalistic pieces with anonymous sources. If a piece is describing someone politically in a particular way, especially if you have strong feelings towards that person, take a step back and think about, are there political reasons why someone might have wanted to leak this to the press, right? Just thinking practically about your position in media and their position in media and who's benefiting from a particular story, right? And that's the last thing I want you guys to take away from the show. Anytime you hear a news story, or you hear or you read a journalistic article or something like that, think about who benefits from the problem, or who benefits from the reporting, because sometimes that will lead you in a direction where you can assess where the bias is coming from. And look, there's no such thing as unbiased reporting, okay? We can try as much as we can, as we like, to be objective, right? And not neutral, by the way. Objectivity and neutrality are very different things, and we should not confuse them. But sometimes it's just really hard to be objective, right? Sometimes your bias is that you feel strongly about the issue, and you feel that you should comment on it in a particular way. And so no one's ever going to be perfect, but if you go into a piece understanding what that individual's biases are, or that organization's biases are, right? Like, for example, multinational corporations are very rarely, which by corporate media is, right? It's very rare for them to do a story against one of their sponsors, because it's all about the bottom dollar, right? If you create a for-profit corporation, even a media one, at some point they have to think about money. And if they crap all over their advertisers, then their advertisers are going to pull out, and then the company will go bankrupt, right? So try and think about those biases. But I hope that you take these lessons away. I hope you find other channels especially in the social sphere, that are doing regular commentary like this. I really wanted this channel to be successful, but it's just too much effort for me to do alone, and it didn't have the reach that I would have hoped for it to have. But there are hopefully other people out there who do the same thing, and hopefully do it a lot better than me, right? I'm just one guy. So anyway, just last thing is, again, thank you so much to everyone who participated in, responded to, baked with me, watched me bake, even just took one of the recipes, even if you didn't use mine. All the recipes will be up, and in fact, I'm actually going to take the document where I compiled all the recipes that I wrote, adapted, borrowed for this show, and put them as a pinned post on the Facebook page. So if you are interested in making any of the recipes that we've covered throughout the life of this show, please, 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 please go to our Facebook page, use the link there to use these recipes, right? Don't let the effort that's been cultivated here in terms of the recipes, right, help go to waste, right? And the videos too. If there's a video about a topic that's kind of more abstract and not news related that you think is useful, you know, you can still use it, right? We're going to keep all this up for your enjoyment pleasure. Thank you so much to everyone who helped make this possible. Thank you to my partner and to my dog for being super kind about letting me film in the new house and in the old house. And this is it. This is the end. I'm going to miss it, but I think it's the right decision to make. Thanks so much.
So now we have waited several hours and our dough is nice and cold. Now, I actually waited longer than I said it would. I wouldn't do 30 seconds. I would do longer. So once you do that, just roll out the dough on a very, very floured surface, and use a 3-inch biscuit cutter or a cup. You want to make sure that your dough is not more than a 1/4 inch thick. You just want to keep recompiling the dough and cutting it out to the extent possible until you have all of your cookies in the right shape, in that round shape. I used a lot of flour to make sure that this didn't stick, so I'm just using a paintbrush to make sure that none of the flour is sticking on there. Next, I am taking 3 fillings. I just happen to have 21 cookies, and I'm taking 3 fillings, and I'm using 1 spoon for the filling and 1 spoon to push it off. You want to use half a tablespoon or less of filling per cookie, just so you make sure you don't have too much filling or they don't explode. Then you just want to pick up the sides of it, fold it into 3 corners, make a little triangle on top, and then pinch the sides. You want to pinch as much as you can and down as hard as you can to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of stickage so they don't explode in the oven. After that, chuck them in at 375 for 15 minutes and you're golden.
Thank you so much for watching this video from Let Them Eat Bread. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out on Twitch and on Facebook, where announcements about our page are kept. We make videos every week, and you can find all of our videos at youtube.com/LetThemEatBread. Thanks again, and see you next time.